where the fun begins.
Hey there guys, we're gonna jump right on into it. Welcome to my first episode breakdown for Obi Wan Kenobi Episode 1, Part 1, as it's been said on Disney+. I'm going to have a separate video, Episode 2, and its breakdown here later on the channel here as well, so hit the subscribe button so you guys don't miss that. I'm so overly excited to make this video. I've been waiting such a long damn time, honestly, guys. If you guys haven't already seen it, check out my reaction video. I posted it and uploaded it last night, directly right after watching the episodes, and I think it should go without saying, heads up, spoilers ahead. We're gonna go ahead and jump right on into it. We're gonna break this thing down frame by frame. Of course, we start out with an Order 66 scene. However, before that, we have essentially a recap of the prequel trilogy and Obi-Wan's history throughout the prequels and his old character and his different connections that he has with Qui-Gon and Anakin. I really enjoyed it, and it highlighted a few key points. I think that they really emphasized on Qui-Gon Jinn possibly making some type of Force ghost appearance within this show, as it's the last thing that Yoda says. However, I'll talk about that in a separate video. As I had mentioned, we start out with an Order 66 scene directly during the events of Revenge of the Sith, when two 501st clones rush in and start shooting at this Jedi Master and her younglings. And then, of course, she gets taken down by these clones. You can't fend them all off, and the younglings and these Padawans are left alone. One common theory I've heard out of there, of course, now at this point in time, is the youngling that we see there in the top left there very well could be Reva. And yes, I've been pronouncing Reva completely wrong these last couple of months that we've been talking about Obi Wan Kenobi. It's been Reva this entire time, and I've been saying Reva. I definitely think we're going to have some more Order 66 flashbacks. I think it's going to be something that's going to be continuing on throughout this rest of the show. 10 years later, we're on Tatooine, and Mos Eisley is what I'm assuming and pretty sure here, where the Grand Inquisitor, the third sister, Reva, and the fifth brother all make an appearance in search of a Jedi. Cut all the chatter, cut all the hate, whatever you want to call it, of course, here on any of the makeup and looks here on the Inquisitors. The Grand Inquisitor and the fifth brother look absolutely phenomenal. I was actually blown away by how cool these guys actually look when you actually give them a chance, I guess, on the screen here and through the show. Not just basing it off of TV spots and trailers and that type of stuff. Especially the fifth brother, he really took me by surprise. I think that they did a really cool job with his voice effects there. The Grand Inquisitor, there's a lot to talk about and say with him, especially at the end of Episode 2. However, I'm going to hold off on that for our Episode 2 breakdown, and furthermore make a whole separate video on what's possibly going on with that whole thing with the Grand Inquisitor, how that plays in with Star Wars Rebels and the future of the Star Wars franchise as a whole as well. Reva as well is very, very cool looking, and honestly, she's really grown on me. Directly after watching this episode, I went to Star Wars Theories live stream to hear what everybody else was kind of thinking about this. Of course, text a few of you over on our Instagram, Unofficial Star Wars, link down in the description down below, and not many people were very, I guess, fans of her. I really enjoyed her. She really grew on me these last two episodes. I think she's really cool, actually, and totally a hothead, of course, and totally ahead of herself, and wants to get the job done with any means necessary, which is very cool to see. We even see that the Grand Inquisitor and her almost go toe-to-toe here as she tries to start killing this Jedi, of course, that is in hiding, and start hitting him with the lightsaber and burning him there, but the Grand Inquisitor stops it with the Force. In case you don't know, the Inquisitors are Jedi hunters. Themselves actually used to be Jedi way back during the Republic era. They're still dark side Force users, but aren't necessarily classified as Sith Lords. Nonetheless, they're very cool. Ruber Friend really blew away, I guess, my whole reaction here with the Grand Inquisitor. He honestly blew me away. He was amazing. Honestly, he was terrifying, and he had that right tone and theme that we saw in Star Wars Rebels, despite him saying that he did not watch Star Wars Rebels in preparation for the role. As I had said, Reva uses any means by necessary, throwing a knife at the poor bartender in his side of the cantina here, and it's stopped by the Force. A Force user, the Jedi has now revealed himself, because it's like an itch, as the Grand Inquisitor says. They can't help it. They need to do the good thing. They need to help. And in this case, this is what he did. He stopped the knife from hitting this guy and revealed himself. Now he's on the run, and as I had mentioned, she's stopped by Reva, and by any means necessary, she slashes out her lightsaber in an effort to slice him down. She's stopped by the Grand Inquisitor using the Force, stopping the blade from hitting him, while it's only merely burning him, which is very, very painful. And just like that, Reva is forced away from him from the Grand Inquisitor, and he books it. He's gone. He's out. I'm a little bit confused, quite honestly, why they didn't just straight up kill this guy, and I guess to answer that question, of course, is in an effort to find any other Jedi that might be around. In this case, it's Obi Wan Kenobi that we know that they have been hunting down for the last 10 years. Yet, they still can't find him. Speaking of which, it's revealed that Obi Wan Kenobi is working on a meat type of, I guess, facility here. He's, in his own terms, trying to simply live a normal life and move on from the Clone Wars and his past life as a Jedi, essentially rebuilding his life from scratch here. You can tell that he wants to do good. He wants to stop this guy, his boss here, who's a real jerk to his workers, but yet he can't. He can't really bring it out in him. He can't reveal his force powers or his lightsaber or anything like that, which is very unfortunate. We see his daily routine essentially from going and working at this facility, this meat factory, to going back into town to grab his little space camel type of thing and head back to his cave. Now, he's not yet moved into his little hut that we see in A New Hope. However, seeing that whole transition is something I definitely think we'll be seeing throughout the rest of the show. Essentially the death of Obi Wan Kenobi and that transition into Ben Kenobi. This guy right here is a little bit important. He's essentially a security system. At first I thought it was R2. I don't really completely know why. He's probably off doing his own thing. If it's blue, that means that nobody has gone inside or anything like that, and when it's red, it means somebody's in there. I'm assuming that this is more or less used to warn Kenobi of any Inquisitors. It's also learned that Kenobi has befriended a Jawa. The whole comedic idea of this Jawas are always comedic, as we see in The Mandalorian and previously, and on pretty much any Star Wars, I guess, content out there, shows, movies, whatever the case may be, they've always been more, I guess, humorous, and many fans are torn up about that. Having any type of humor within this show just doesn't seem right, and it's something I'm going to talk about in a separate video because I'm torn on it as well, if it's something that is really necessary for this overall show. However, nonetheless, we do learn that Kenobi has befriended this Jawa, who have quite the relationship together, as this Jawa essentially steals stuff from Kenobi and then just like resells it to him, which is a little bit humorous, yes, I'll admit it. And he also shows Kenobi this old Jedi belt that he found, which reminds Kenobi of the old times, of course. This scene right here, this sets the entirety of the mood throughout the rest of the series and this show, this timeline, this whatever you want to call it. Where we're at in the Star Wars timeline with this show is Kenobi having these flashbacks and nightmares to the prequel trilogy and through the Clone Wars, his relationship with Anakin and Qui-Gon. Dude, this just hit me like a brick wall. Wow. I had absolute chills just talking about this, thinking about it. Wow. This was an amazing sequence of events here, this amazing scene right here, and on top of it, after he awakens from this nightmare, we see that he talks out to himself in an effort to reach out to Qui-Gon Jinn, his former master from The Phantom Menace. The whole theme of Qui-Gon Jinn making some type of potential appearance here within this show, it seems very, very positive. It seems like something that is very well going to happen here, just a matter of when, where, and how is yet to be the question. It could be flashbacks, and it could be a Force Ghost sequence. I think it's going to be a little bit of both, to be completely honest with you guys. Mentioned Qui-Gon right here, and they also had mentioned him at the end of that recap from the prequel trilogy at the beginning of the show here, essentially the life of Obi-Wan, and at the end of it we hear that Yoda, of course, has some training for Kenobi to do over on Tatooine regarding his former master and how to reach out to his former master as a Force Ghost. After this scene, we go on to see some of Kenobi's day-to-day activities aside from working at the meat facility and going into town to grab his little space camel, make his way back home. He has to do a little bit of stalking with a young Luke Skywalker as he goes out to the Lars homestead, simply keeping watch over the boy and his family, making sure that they're safe and that they're well. However, Owen Lars seems to disagree, as we had already seen this official clip revealed here officially by Star Wars and Disney, which we had already covered here on the channel. It was very, very cool. And something else I should mention that I am absolutely in love with is the fact that all the TV spots and trailers that we had already revealed to us, those are all from the first 2 episodes, aside from like 1 or 2 scenes from when the Inquisitors are all having a meeting at this water planet that we saw from Jedi Fallen Order. He's kind of like Santa Claus leaving a bag of toys for a young Luke Skywalker. The same spaceship in this bag of toys here that we see in A New Hope, Luke Skywalker playing with. Either which way, he's eventually going to get the spaceship after this scene. We do see that Owen Lars throws this bag of toys back at him in the city. However, before we see that, we believe that Kenobi's about to be attacked by Tusken Raiders, the Sand People, as he's making his journey back to his home after watching Luke Skywalker and dropping off that bag of toys. And of course, it's not. It's that Jedi that we had seen before earlier on in the episode that was being hunted by the Inquisitors, and he's reaching out for help. He just doesn't know what to do. He's looking for some type of guidance from Obi Wan Kenobi, and Kenobi just kind of disregards him. He doesn't really I guess, play onto it. He plays him off, actually, if for anything. Which I do have to understand and respect furthermore on top of that, because Kenobi is trying to stay hidden, of course, as much as possible, and he does cave in, and he tells this guy to go off and live a normal life, forget about your past and everything like that type of thing. Unfortunately, this guy does meet his demise later on in the episode, which is very unfortunate, because he does have big potential. A young Princess Leia, as we seem to see in this scene, however not quite yet, is revealed to us in this show. For those of you that have been following leaks and rumors and that type of stuff here, is, well, yes, that's true. There, of course, were talks that a young Princess Leia would be playing some type of substantial role within this Obi Wan Kenobi show, and that's exactly what we see. She's literally just a Disney princess. She doesn't want to do anything princess-like. She'd rather go off and explore, as she had actually used her friend as a decoy, as we had seen at first, revealing that she likes to be in the woods and within nature and in the forest, something very heavily commonly themed in Return of the Jedi, in when she's hanging out on Endor with the Ewoks, of course. I'm going to say this once for all of you. If I catch any of you out there bullying this young actress, this little girl here, I'm coming for you, okay? It's not a threat, it's a promise, so don't do it. Okay, she did absolutely amazing. I'm in love with her acting performance. Was amazing. She portrayed a young Princess Leia so beautifully, especially in episode 2. Was quite amazing. A scene that we had already seen, as I had mentioned earlier on in the video, the interaction between Owen Lars and Obi Wan Kenobi. Owen Lars is telling Kenobi to, of course, leave him and his family alone. He doesn't want anything to do with him. It's very, I guess, conflicting. It's something I want to talk about in a separate video, as I had mentioned in my reaction video, because, well, the plan and the idea is that Kenobi would eventually take the boy to train as a Jedi, and, well, Owen Lars had kind of changed up those plans. He doesn't want anything to do with that. He's kind of disregarding it, which is very unfortunate. However, way too soon, directly after this interaction, we see some of the Inquisitors. Reva and the fifth brother come into town in search of any Jedi, Obi Wan Kenobi and the other guy, of course, that we had seen before. Reva is totally ruthless, like she has any means by necessary. She straight up cuts off this lady's hand, which really should set the theme of violence and that type of tone here throughout this entirety of the show, which was incredible to see. She begins to interrogate Owen Lars about knowing something about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and deep down inside, we do eventually learn that she has it out for Kenobi. Like, she just despises and hates him. She is filled with so much hatred, and that just so consumed with it, is what I'm assuming, and she can kind of telepathically read his mind, something that we see in episode 2, as she's, like, force reading this guy's mind from episode 2. It's very similar to what Kylo Ren does to Poe Dameron in search of the map to Skywalker. Owen Lars is eventually able to play it down as Kenobi's watching it from afar, and all of these people around are also watching it. The fifth brother steps in eventually, says, "Hey, you're doing too much, you're doing the most, let's take a chill pill and let's go." I must mention once again, I was absolutely blown away by the voice effects that they did with the fifth brother, and the overall performance of him and everybody that worked on this show is absolutely phenomenal. But the Inquisitors, essentially, they specifically really blew me away, especially this first episode. They were amazing. We head back to Alderaan to witness some of the Princess Leia type of activities here. She meets with her mother's sister's family, and she has it out for her cousin, which is pretty funny and cute at the same time. It definitely builds onto her character, not to be that person, but yeah, it's character development, learning a little bit about a younger Princess Leia, knowing her throughout the sequel trilogy as an older Princess Leia, and knowing her throughout the original trilogy as well, seeing her in even Star Wars Rebels show as a teenager, and now getting to experience this character as a younger version of herself as a little kid is so incredibly cool and special at the same time. Going from generation to generation as well is something very cool. We learn that she doesn't really feel like that she belongs here, that she doesn't want to do this with her life, she doesn't want to be a princess. As I mentioned, it's essentially princess types of stuff. It's a Disney princess, which is very cool. It's a very cool aspect to bring to the Star Wars universe and the Star Wars franchise. Something that you would think is generic, but is honestly kind of cool. Trouble's able to find her, however, and unfortunately, as she heads off into the woods to have, I guess, play, I don't know, whatever little kids like to do in the forest, I guess they play there. She gets kidnapped, unfortunately, in an effort from the Inquisitors to bring out Kenobi. And essentially what the grand scheme of things here is that Reva has it so out for Kenobi that she hires these bad guys, these bounty hunters, to pick up a young Princess Leia, because Reva knows that Kenobi is going to come out and try to rescue a young Princess Leia, essentially luring him into the trap of the Inquisitors. Something else that we also learned in the second episode is that Reva is doing this kind of solo and like kind of by herself type of thing. She doesn't really want all that much help from the Fifth Brother or the Grand Inquisitor or any other type of Inquisitors out there. Bail Organa and Kenobi have this communication system essentially for emergencies, is what I'm assuming. They're going to call each other if something bad happens to one of the twins, essentially, or maybe if something bad happens to one of them type of thing. And in this case, the Bail Organa family here, of course, and also Leia's adopted mother, is in search for help from Kenobi to go and help young Princess Leia and to go rescue her. Now Kenobi, he says he can't do it, he won't do it because he's not that guy anymore. He's aged, of course. It's 10 years since Revenge of the Sith. He's not that same hero that we've known from the prequel trilogy and the prequel era. He's hidden his Force ability and his Force powers. He doesn't really have the same, I guess, he's rusty at it, essentially. Like, the way that Star Wars Theory likes to describe this is, imagine playing a sport all throughout maybe your high school career type of thing, and then just stop playing. You just stop playing after, and then like a good 5 years later, you go back to playing the sport, and you're going to be rusty. You're not going to be the best at it, and it's essentially the same thing in an effort to describe that what kind of Obi Wan Kenobi is struggling with using the Force. Same thing with his lightsaber, probably. Leia gets tied up and brought off world, as we learn, and as I had mentioned, the grand scheme of things here is this is all in an effort to draw out Kenobi for the Inquisitors. Also, this guy didn't make it all that far, and I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I've been calling him this guy the entirety of this video because I don't know his name. I forgot him. He was a cool character, but he's not relevant anymore because, well, he's unalived. You guys remember this light from earlier that I had mentioned, and when it's blue, it means that nobody's in there, and when it's red, it means somebody's in there, and well, it's essentially like a security system. And I have to be completely honest with you guys, when I first saw a hooded figure just standing there like this, I totally thought it was Mace Windu. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Mace Windu lives. I'm that guy, of course. But of course, it's Bail Organa. This isn't a cameo show or anything like that. No hate towards the Book of Boba Fett. Bail Organa has gone for such extreme measures in an effort to get Kenobi to actually help him, in an effort to rescue Princess Leia here, and he's also come all the way out here in person in an effort to plead. Leia has something going for her right here, just for a minute, where she props out her little Lola space droid, which is the cutest thing ever. My dog's named Lola, so there's a connection in there. She totally could have used Lola in an effort to, I guess, pin her signal where she is and her location to Kenobi or Bail Organa or the Royal Guards, whoever would be able to track her down type of thing. How unfortunately, that's not the case, and it gets smashed. Very unfortunate. We then, after that scene, find Obi Wan Kenobi out in the middle of the desert, and he's about to go ahead and dig around looking for a box. Inside of his box, we find something very special. I got absolute chills from this, and yes, it also reminded me quite a bit of the end of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, where Rey goes out to the middle of the desert in Tatooine and buries the lightsabers there as well. And in this case, it's Anakin's lightsaber and Obi-Wan's lightsaber together in a box, buried away. And this is kind of like a representation, I guess, burying away his past there, for one thing, and burying away his past relationship with Anakin Skywalker. Now, mind you, at this point in time, Obi-Wan Kenobi thinks that Anakin's dead. He's gone. He's not alive anymore. He's not out there. However, he does learn something different in episode 2, and I'm going to save it for our episode 2 breakdown video. Anyway, to finish things off, it ends off very adventurous on a cliffhanger there. I'm glad that they do end this episode like this, and it gives room, of course, for episode 2 there, which they premiered back to back with that 2-episode premiere, which is very, very cool. Of course, I'm going to be covering our episode 2 breakdown here on the channel a little bit later here, maybe hopefully later on in the day, if not first thing in the morning tomorrow. Obi-Wan Kenobi ventures off the planet here of Tatooine. He's been here for the last 10-ish years watching over Luke Skywalker, so he hasn't been off the planet in a very, very long time. And I should also mention that this scene looks very, very cool, where he kind of unveils his lightsaber there just a little, but of course you got to be careful. It's very cool that he went ahead and unburied those and he's bringing them with him. And just like that there is the entirety of episode 1. Absolutely phenomenal. Left me speechless. Of course, I'm still soaking it in and taking it all in, of course, here, and we're gonna be talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi for like the next 5 weeks here on the channel, so make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you guys don't miss any of our upcoming videos here as well. There really isn't, to be completely honest and fair with you guys, a whole lot to break down. There's not a whole lot that you may or may have not really missed throughout the entirety of this episode. The whole purpose and idea of this episode and exactly what it did and what it did, it succeeded in it, of course, is is setting up the overall ideal of the show, where we're at in the Star Wars timeline, who our characters are and all that, where the characters are mentally, where they are, I guess, physically in this point in time, of course, introducing all the characters and all that type of stuff. It seems that Leia will be playing quite a substantial role throughout the entirety and the rest of this overall series here, although I do also think that Luke Skywalker, a young Luke Skywalker at that, is going to have the light shown on him a little bit here as well throughout this series here as well. So many of us have been looking forward to this show for such a long time, and while it's finally here and it's amazing, let's all enjoy it together. Go hit the subscribe button and the notification button.
Hello there. This is where the fun begins.
What's going on, guys? Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and welcome to our episode 2 Obi Wan Kenobi breakdown, Easter eggs, things you may have missed, and I'm going to have my full reaction / theories towards the end of the video, and also a little bit throughout the video here as well. Let's hop right on into it. I think it's safe to say this here is, of course, going to include spoilers, so if you haven't seen Obi Wan Kenobi, either episode 1 or episode 2, click off the video now. One thing I very, very much liked about this episode starting right off the bat is the way that it leads right off directly from the previous episode. There doesn't really seem to be much of a time gap or anything like that, a time jump or anything. It simply kind of flows on, and it's much like a movie almost. We're on the planet of Diamo, and it's much like a lower levels of Coruscant pretty much. It's rugged, and it's dirty, it's nasty, and there's all types of trouble going on. One of the people that Kenobi runs into is actually an old clone from the Clone Wars, homeless and looking for any type of money or help, a warm meal, as he mentioned. It's very interesting to see what happens to most of the clone troopers after the Clone Wars and after the prequel trilogy, where they go, what they do, and it's something I'm very well looking forward to exploring more and more within the Star Wars franchise. In the Bad Batch, the Cassian Andor show, and now the Kenobi show, all kind of giving us a little bit of an insight on that. Kenobi also runs into a spice dealer, or a spice runner, which is essentially just a drug dealer in Star Wars terms. She gives him a thing of spice, kind of just for free, and just kind of to be nice. I guess she feels bad for him, and that comes in handy for a little bit later, as we'll see. Kenobi snoops around for any insights and clues or directions that he could easily use to find Leia, as this is his mission, is to find Leia, get her out of there, and get her back to Bail Organa. He seemingly finds another Jedi who is using his powers for the good. His name's Hajjaj, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. And, well, yes, he isn't actually a Jedi. He's rather using this as an attention gimmick and an effort to get money. However, at the same time, he does claim that he is actually helping these people, just not completely legitimately as a Jedi, because he doesn't have any Force abilities, as Kenobi exposes him for using magnets. I have a little bit of a problem with this character. However, I don't really think we're going to be seeing him all much more throughout the entirety of this series. He does play a substantial role, an amazing actor, of course, and no hate towards that or anything like that. However, I lightly mentioned it in our episode 1 breakdown here on the channel I had released earlier on in the day. Hajjaj is a very humorous character, and while the Obi Wan Kenobi show isn't necessarily really the place for that, in my own thoughts and opinions, and many of the Star Wars fans out there actually agree with that they don't really want to see all that much humor throughout the Kenobi show. It's a serious time period, and furthermore, it's a more emotional time period, so I really want to be living within that and not be taken out of that kind of moment or focus, I guess, mode, whatever you really want to call it, from some stupid humorous kind of joke here. Anyway, Hajjaj gives Kenobi a little bit of insight of where he could go to find these cells that Leia is being held within, and he also proves himself worthy by giving a helping hand later on towards the end of the episode, we'll see. Kenobi finds himself in a laboratory here, a spice laboratory at that, as it seems, and it much reminds me of the Breaking Bad series, of many of you Star Wars fans out there have already mentioned. Kenobi records up a little bit of a scene, and it causes a little bit of attention, and slides through a door that's being guarded back towards the prison cells. He's stopped by these two guys right here, and he totally beats them up, however not using the Force. The question for this is, why isn't he using the Force? Well, there's two reasons. For one thing, he's really rusty. He hasn't really using it all that much in the previous 10 years, all in an effort to hide his Jedi powers and hide from the Inquisitors and Darth Vader as well. That leads to the second reason. He isn't using his powers in this part in case somebody else may walk in, and then they could easily tell that this here is a Jedi and inform the Inquisitors. He enters one of the cells thinking that maybe Leia potentially could be in there. However, he's bamboozled and fooled, and then he's trapped in there by those kidnappers that had kidnapped Leia in the previous episode. They give him a hard time, beat him up a little bit, and say that they're going to keep him there here until Reva arrives. And this face right here may look a little bit familiar, and it looked too familiar, so I went ahead and looked it up. This here's actually one of the guitarists of the Red Hot Chili Peppers for my rock band fans out there. Very interesting and new thing that Star Wars is doing is bringing musicians into the acting world. We saw it with the Book of Boba Fett and Thundercat. Obi-Wan's able to take care of these guys pretty easily, as remember that spice thing that lady had given him towards the beginning of the episode? I'm pretty sure that he threw that down, and which created an explosion of spice in the room, knocking all these guys out, and then he went ahead and snuck his way out. Second time does the trick, as he's now found Leia's cell that she's actually being held in. She firstly, of course, makes an effort to run away, thinking that it's probably one of the kidnappers, and on top of that, she doesn't know who Obi Wan Kenobi is, so she goes ahead, kicks him, and then goes ahead and runs away. However, Kenobi's able to grab her and explain a little bit. I've just got to say, the relationship between these two is just so incredibly wholesome. I just can't get over it. It's so cool to see the relationship between Kenobi and a young Princess Leia, and actually seeing this come to fruition and actually happen is really cool. They go off into the streets now, and in an effort to get off the world and get off the planet, make their way back to Alderaan. They switch outfits and switch disguises, going through the streets here in an effort to stay discreet and secret, of course, from the Inquisitors and other Imperials that could be roaming the streets. The Inquisitors have a meeting with the Grand Inquisitor, the fifth brother, Reva, and another Inquisitor who was also there with them. I'm not completely sure on who she is, however, we did see her in a couple other scenes there in those TV spots and trailers. This scene feels important because it's like a turning point, I feel like, with the relationship between the Inquisitors. Reva was very, I guess, hasty in that first episode, and not really listening to the Grand Inquisitor or anything like that, and was doing anything necessary and all means necessary to get her hands on Kenobi or any other Jedi in the area. The other Inquisitors disagree with these tactics and actually want to use these other Jedi in an effort to find more Jedi by maybe potentially torturing them. I'm not completely sure on what they did with this episode, but the Grand Inquisitor looks different, and he looks terrifying. He looks amazing. Look at that makeup. Oh my gosh, it just looks so incredible. The Inquisitors at this point, as I had mentioned, seemingly go in their separate directions. The Grand Inquisitor and the fifth brother doing their thing, and Reva goes off doing her own thing in search of Kenobi by all means necessary. Reva's tactic is to essentially cause as much chaos as possible by alerting everybody in the streets who just so happen to all be bounty hunters in an effort to hunt down Obi Wan Kenobi and Leia. This was such a crazy, hectic scene, and there was so much chaos going on. I'm honestly kind of surprised that nobody really was able to get their hands on either one of these, since they were like right there in kind of plain sight for the most part. There's also a point where I feel like Leia was talking a little bit loudly in front of everybody and talking about how Kenobi's a Jedi, make me float, that type of stuff. Also, the scene right here is super wholesome, how he gets her the gloves as well. Hajjaj comes back, and now he's trying to get on the hunt here in an effort to go ahead and hunt down Leia and Kenobi, teaming up with this little kid who we'd seen at the beginning of the episode who seemingly was selling spice as well. The fifth brother and the Grand Inquisitor come up with a legitimate plan here, and then that, of course, is to shut down all the ships going off and into the world here, of course, and to get an entirety of a garrison here on the planet in an effort to hunt down Kenobi. Reva, on the other hand, her whole idea is to cause as much chaos throughout the city by pretty much hiring and alerting all bounty hunters in the area, which just so happens to be pretty much everybody. And then, sure, it looks cool, and it probably is fun, but she goes ahead and she's just like jumping on all these rooftops throughout like the entirety of the rest of the episode, I feel like, pretty much, which we'll see in just a moment. Amongst all the chaos, Kenobi and Leia are able to go into this little alley right here and hide out for just a little bit, maybe for things to kind of settle down here. Kenobi even gets the chance to learn a little bit about Leia, which is very wholesome and very sweet as well. And yeah, I could kind of see it throughout this episode, and even a little bit in the last episode as well, how Leia really resembles a young Padme during the Clone Wars TV series animated on Cartoon Network, or maybe similar to also Anakin Skywalker as well. She's kind of just doing her thing. Even though she never actually got to meet her parents and grow up with them or anything like that, we kind of still see that resemblance, and it's something that Kenobi mentions closer towards the end of the episode as well. The alarm to one of the bounty hunters that Kenobi had knocked out in the alley previously started going off and making a lot of noise, and of course he goes to shut it down. The image that's used is from Revenge of the Sith 10 years ago, of course, during the timeline and events here of the show here, and it's an actual legitimate like promo picture that was used, of course, for Revenge of the Sith. However, it was never actually officially used. Unfortunately, this is where some of the trouble begins with Leia here and Kenobi and their relationship. She thinks that he's the one that's, I guess, kidnapping her, and seeing that like everybody's in search for him actually freaks out and goes on this wild goose chase around the entirety of the city, which is pretty crazy. I'm really surprised that none of these guys were able to get their hands on Kenobi because he's just right there in plain sight. I don't know, it feels a little bit like a plot hole maybe. Oh, then again, you should also realize that not everybody here is a bounty hunter or on the search or hunt here for Kenobi. Really just a vast majority for all we know, really. The whole chasing scene though eventually kind of got a little annoying. It kind of just felt drawn out, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, although that's not completely necessarily bad. It doesn't ruin the show or anything like that. Also, when Kenobi's running on the rooftops and running after Leia, he keeps shouting Leia, and it reminds me a lot of when Finn is just like, I don't know, yelling Rey throughout the sequel trilogy, which is kind of funny. To make matters even worse though, a gunfight breaks out onto the rooftop as two bounty hunters are hunting down Obi Wan Kenobi. The one droid is said to be for LOM from The Empire Strikes Back. However, Deborah Chow in a recent interview I had seen said that this isn't actually for LOM, which is kind of funny, and it's actually supposed to be a different droid. Hajjaj is loosely following around Kenobi here as he's on his wild goose chase for Leia, of course, here, and we're thinking that maybe he's going to cause some type of ruckus, although in the end he actually does help. Leia tries to make a jump, doesn't make it, falls onto some wires and is able to hold on to them for just a little bit, totally freaking out Kenobi as he starts to reach out, trying to use the Force. Now, as I had mentioned earlier on in the video, Kenobi isn't really using the Force all that much right now, simply for the two reasons of he's really rusty at using the Force, he's not the best at it, he hasn't used it in a good 10-ish years, and for the other fact that he's trying to hide his Force abilities and not to be all this commotion and attracting Inquisitors or any type of ruckus from the Empire. However, when she does fall, he's able to safely land her down onto the ground. Hajjaj is able to meet them up into the alley that Leia had fallen into as they are trying to make a grand escape here for the actual port here to get off-world, but it's all closed down from the Inquisitors and from the Empire because they're all in search of him, so he actually is able to give them a helping hand and tell them go to the cargo ships. There aren't any people up there because they're all automatic. Nice redemption for his character. This guy here, earlier, the kidnapper, he actually dies from the Grand Inquisitor. We hear it as the slicing of the blade and him screaming. The screen goes black pretty much, so I'm assuming that he's probably dead. Also, remember earlier on in the video when I said that Reva just kind of goes on this like jumping across buildings type of spree? She was still at it like this entire time. It's cool though, it looks cool, but it's just kind of like obnoxious and it kind of feels a little silly after a couple minutes because she's doing it so much. Anyway, she eventually jumps down into an alley and finds Hajjaj, and she's able to use a Force mind trick, reading his mind much like Kylo Ren does to Poe Dameron in The Force Awakens. Using this trick, she's able to find out the location of Kenobi and Leia as they're on to the automatic cargo ships where he told them to go. Maybe it's difficult for her to do this trick, but it kind of creates a little bit of a plot hole. Why didn't she do this to Owen Lars when she was searching for Obi-Wan and the other Jedi on Tatooine in Episode 1? Kenobi and Leia are making their way over to the automatic cargo ships in an effort to get off of the planet here, and everything is going smoothly until Reva makes her appearance here onto the cargo ship. Kenobi gives her the key to make the cargo ship automatically go off, or in this case, manually go off the planet here, instead of it waiting around for a time slot, in case he gets a little caught up here with Reva. I'm not entirely sure on where these cargo ships are exactly headed, or if it's going to bring her back to Alderaan, or maybe somewhere else, maybe the cargo's destination, so it's going to be interesting to see where they're going to show up here in the next episode. This here is the big reveal, and there's a lot of mixed feelings as of right now from Star Wars fans, what they feel about this, what they think about this. Nonetheless, it has to happen at some point. Mind you, during this 10-year time period, Kenobi thinks that Anakin is dead. He doesn't know that Darth Vader is Anakin, and he doesn't really all that much even know about Darth Vader and his presence within the galaxy. Reva reveals to Kenobi that Anakin Skywalker is indeed alive and is actually Darth Vader. The shocking truth, and I think that his facial expressions tell us it all, and it gives us that, I guess, what he's feeling and how we're feeling type of kind of feeling, and it makes you feel speechless. Before she's able to continue, and now that the truth is out here, in an effort to begin to draw Kenobi out, the Grand Inquisitor steps into the scene, telling her to stop, and I'm really oddly confused by this motive. Don't you want Kenobi? Isn't your job to kill off Jedi? And this kind of, I guess, recycles back to the idea that they could use Kenobi in an effort to find other Jedi. However, I will say, the question is proposed, is it really worth all that hassle to keep Kenobi alive alive when it's such a hard job to capture him? I mean, you guys have been hunting him and looking for him for the past 10 years. Why wouldn't you just go ahead and do it? It kind of raises those questions. Maybe the Grand Inquisitor still has too much good in him. He was previously a temple guard of the Jedi Temple, so maybe there's still good in him, and he doesn't really see all the reason to kill off one of his Jedi old friends. However, Reva does, as she ignites her lightsaber into the Grand Inquisitor, stabbing him straight into the stomach, seemingly killing him. This is such a huge shocker. The events of the Obi Wan Kenobi show take place before the events of Star Wars Rebels, and during the first season of Star Wars Rebels, the Grand Inquisitor is such a key player. Does this make Star Wars Rebels Legends? I'll tell you guys right now, I don't believe that this makes Star Wars Rebels Legends, and I believe that the Grand Inquisitor is perfectly fine. He's still alive. There's back-to-tanks, there's cybernetic upgrades you can get, of course, here. All I really need to say is that Darth Maul was cut in half and still lived, and that Palpatine still lived after being thrown down a huge tunnel. However, what I will be doing is covering this in a separate video, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Now, Kenobi is able to make a run for it and board the ship with Leia. However, mentally, he's just not there. He's in complete, utter shock. Anakin Skywalker, his best friend, his brother, his Padawan, his failed Padawan, is still alive, and furthermore is one of the most feared presences in the galaxy. Darth Vader is officially revealed and introduced into the Obi Wan Kenobi show. Hayden Christensen, of course, reprising his role. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have been waiting for. I'm still not over it. I'm flabbergasted by it. You guys already know it. I've seen... my reaction video has been out. Just wow. The performance of Ian McGregor alone, it just says it all. He just stands there staring blankly in utter shock and then simply whispers the word to himself, Anakin, and it cuts to Darth Vader. This is amazing. There's no better other way to introduce something like this, especially when it's already been confirmed when the show was first announced nearly 2 years ago from Kathleen Kennedy herself, Lucasfilm's president, that Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi will be fighting in the show. For as of right now, the rumors / leaks say that these characters are going to be fighting twice throughout this show. Speaking of leaks and rumors, it's something that we have been covering here off and on the channel for the last couple of months now at this point in time, and one of those most memorable leaks I remember out there that just made this such a more insane moment, I feel like, for me and my viewing ship, is that this was the leak, is that somebody tells Obi-Wan that Anakin is still alive, and we simply cut to the screen of Anakin / Vader opening up his eyes inside of a back-to-tank and awakening. It is just, it's literally ripped straight from that leak, and it's so cool to see that these leaks come to true and come to fruition. Same thing with Spider-Man No Way Home and all that hype going on as well over in the Marvel community. It goes without saying that this here is an easily 1,000 out of 10 episode. This was phenomenal and amazing, and everything that we've been waiting for and looking forward to here in the Star Wars franchise and for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. From here, I would believe that Leia, of course, is going to be dropped back off in Alderaan. Kenobi's going to return to Tatooine, and from there, essentially, a young Luke Skywalker is going to pick up that role that Leia was playing, where Kenobi and a young Luke Skywalker are now going to team up for something. As I had mentioned for our first episode breakdown here, this show is so amazing. It is so awesome, furthermore, to experience this thing with you. Nearly 10,000 of you subscribers and nearly 30,000 of you followers over on our Instagram. I can't thank you guys enough for all of the love and support that I just get to sit here and totally geek out about Star Wars. Is so fun and so amazing to do with you guys, so thank you guys so much. Of course, I want to know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think about episode 2, some of your theories, speculations, hopes and dreams to see throughout the rest of the series here, and also for episode 3. Let me know in the comment section down below. I absolutely love to hear what you guys all think. Drop like a new video if you enjoy it, as it is with the channel, and check out Instagram on official Star Wars for more Star Wars and content, guys. Thanks so much for watching today's video. As always, may the Force be with you. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.